Hello all, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Ripster Daily Trade Recaps and Teachings. So guys, another busy day, so much going on, earnings, China. So there's a lot of discuss today. Probably be a long video, but I've split it into different episodes so you can just view what ticker you want to watch and or whatever segment you're going to watch. I will split it into different episodes and you can watch today's video accordingly. Before I start, anybody new, this is my daily trade recaps, my teachings where I review today's trades, my trades or the trades I don't take, or my guidance, or any trades in my community that my trading floor or traders are taking in Tenet trade community. Any trade that I tweet out or I share with everybody, like today we shared a couple of DWAC and some low flow trades that I shared on Twitter today as well. So I'm recap all those and see what were the winners, what were the losers, what was our pre-market planning, how did our planning pan out, what was my timestamped guidance, was I wrong, was I right, what was our system working right. So we're trying to figure out everything, we try to recap everything, we try to learn so that we can improve and at the same time make a journal of how we did today. So guys, every morning I start 1 hour before the market open with my team. We go through all the news sources and we create a watch list. We create a watch list. You can see I share all the news sources, morning wrap, pre-market movers 1, pre-market movers 2, pre-market movers 3, analyst comments. I share everything with my community, and after going through everything, we create a watch list for our community, which I try to give them at least 20 to 30 minutes before the market open, and I give the plan for the day. For example, you can see the plan here on Baba, BIDU, and other movers. So I give them, I do that, so you can see that, and we will recap those plays as well today, how each one of them played out, which were the winners, which were the losers. So we will talk about them, and then I also create the levels. You can take a screenshot of these and see how they worked out. Most of the days levels work pretty good on a trend day. On a choppy day, not so much, but they do give us some idea how to trade and what to do. For example, SMCI, after breaking the resistance pivot after later in the day, went crazy into the close after hours. So things like that. And every day we do repeatable setups. I invented Ripster EMA cloud system. That's what 99% of traders, my students or my community, use that system. Of course, everybody's free to use whatever system they want, but my point is to try to make things repeatable, so everybody is doing a repeatable system and repeatable setups again and again and again, so that we can find consistent success. All right guys, that was the introduction. Let's kickstart with our first play of the day. The first play we are going to look at is triple MMM. So what was the planning on MMM in the pre-market? I told everybody what was this news, strong delivery, strong fourth quarter results, and our support pivots were 99 and 100, and our resistance pivot was 104. The bias was bearish to short the pops as per our system. As long as under 100, it was a short. If 100 tries to bounce, then we can try to do a B minus bounce on that. But as soon as the market opened, I saw that level breaking down on triple M. So let's see, so I can show you here. So you see the level breaking down, and that's when I told everybody to short on the pops, and even in the open I said short on the pops. The reason I say short on the pops is because a lot of times new traders try to just hit the ask. If I say something, they hit the ask. So I take an entry, I short, but I want to make sure people are having a good entry, and they start and they scale in. So anyways, as soon as the market opens, we short it, and I already told everybody to do that. You already saw that. I told everybody it's a short under 100, and that was it. I gave 96.50 my first target, then my another target was around 95 area, and we had no reason to cover, right? So we were covering on the way. Right? So I said cover. We always cover at 10 a.m. That's our first rule. Our first covers at 10 a.m. Then if it keeps breaking down, we can add more further down. And I did tell everybody that I am still holding some lotto puts. I was trading shares and some lotto puts, and all it was to just hold as long as the trend holds. And it faded all the way from 100 to 94, $6 per share short. If you risked high of the day on that, that was almost, you risked dollar and a half, and you made $6. So that's 4 times your risk and the return. So the puts, they're the puts that today there's 98 puts went from 50 cents to $4. That was impressive return on those puts as well. I usually tell people to wait on the puts in the earning season, because in the morning the puts are really juiced. The IV is a little high. If you do not know what IV is, go Google, search how the options work. So, but anyways, this was a clean setup. Daily was bearish. Daily was breaking all the support, all the levels. 100 psychological level played a big part in this trade. I teach again and again about 100 psychological level, and I gave everything in the pre-market as well, the plan. So beautifully executed trade today. Triple M, the biggest win for me today. Great day on that one. Let's move to the next one. So one more thing I want to talk about is on Triple M. Why was it like an A plus setup? The reason being, once after 10 a.m. it could never make a higher low. It was lower highs. So that tells you that it's going to keep selling. Every pop is keep getting sold. If holds a certain level and bounces before 10 a.m., then you have to be cautious. But you see how the price action. Compare this to the other trades sometimes which don't work for us. Compare this to that trade and you will see what's the difference, right, between a successful short and a short that does not work. You will find the answer. So second one, I want to talk about JNJ. Let's see what was our plan for the pre-market on JNJ. The pre-market plan on the JNJ was the fourth quarter earnings and revenue were narrowly better than the expectations, but the stock was, what was stock doing? We had two levels on it. We had 162 and we had 164. Those are the two levels I gave everybody, right? So the point was we cannot become, just bullish. It was giving up already before the market opened, so it was already kind of giving up under those levels. It was, so it was kind of short biased. The system was already telling us that it's a short biased. It was breaking that pivot, our pivot, right? So we could not get a perfect entry, but it broke the 162 pivot and then it faded. So once that pivot is broken, you can see, right, it breaks that 162, and in the pre-market only it was giving up. So it was clearly very bearish, right? So it was clearly very bearish and it could not get back over that. If it bounced, then it was a short again. Any bounce was a short. And that's what I said at open. It's a nice short under the pivot levels. The target I gave everybody was 157.50. So that's the target I gave. I gave the target right at open. If you want to go to 2 minutes chart, we can go there and then we can look at it, right? So I said that 938, I said it's a nice short, because another thing was it was breaking this pre-market low. This pre-market low was not available when I built my pivots, but right now I know that's the low. So what happens, it still holds that. You can look at 3 minutes. If you struggle with the 10 minutes at open, look at a 3 minutes chart. It's kind of creating a bear flag here, right at this support. It cannot make a higher high. You see lower high, and eventually it fades. And I gave the 157.50 target, and what did it hit? It hit my target, even hit more than my target. And the 160 puts went 100% in first 20 minutes. So this was just like a, initial morning trade under the pivot. And yes, of course, it bounces. And the thing is, if you are still not covering and losing on this trade, then there's some problem with your scaling in and scaling out, because the stock clearly faded, decent move to give you 100% on a put. So you need to cover, right? So when it bounces here, I didn't even see this fade right here, so I had to cover a little later. But when I see this candle and this higher candle, so this means the reversal is coming, and then you see it's creating this cup and handle on 3 minutes or 10 minute, and you know this is holding, you no longer you need to hold. When you see this, you know, you can either long scalp, and look, when I said so I said it turned bullish, right? So that's when we cover. So when it turns bullish right here, you could trade it long in the gap. You know, that's one of the reversal gap setup that I will discuss in the webinar, but that was the reversal setup. Anyways, guys, the point was JNJ was a short in the morning, 10 a.m. trade, decent morning trade, short win. I did not long it, but if you did, good job on that reversal. So other one I'm going to discuss next is the big meme stock that we're trading every day. So that is DWAC, right? So that's DWAC. So on the DWAC, what was the plan on DWAC? It was a day 2, because yesterday was a big day and today was a day 2. So day 2, you know, there was this 45 was support and 5150 was a resistance pivot. And I said in the pre-market all about 50. Short under 50, long over it. That was the plan. And what did it do? It's that simple, guys. Trading doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need an RSI or a MACD or, you know, shitload of indicators to trade. It was simple. If you literally listen to my words, it's under 50. Wherever you short, that high of the day or 50 is your risk, and you short it, right? So what did I say? Nice short under 50. You know, because I try to look at everything and tell people, but I'm proud of many traders who are executing themselves already. By the time I'm telling them, they're already in. So anyways, DWAC was a nice short. Then it was all about the guidance. I told people, do not cover, it's still heavy. I said that at 950, and then after I said that, 10 minutes after that, it hit 40, right? So from, even if you added 48, let's say you risk $2, you know, it hit 40, 41, you made you know, almost $7 on that short. Even if you had a late entry, let's even if you made $6, right? It was still 1 risk to 3 reward trade. And options, I didn't trade options on DWAC, so might have even done much better. But anyways, so that's why I said cover into 40s, because the 40s was a level from yesterday. If you see clearly where it was bouncing, this was the level from yesterday. So I said everybody cover it, right? So I moved on, we scalp short and moved on until end of the day. One of the traders on the floor, Lemon, who's a great trader, he talked about that how it's, you know, maybe I had a price alert. I didn't have a price alert over the clouds. So and what did DWAC do? DWAC moved over the clouds, right? So that then it moved to our 50 side. So that's what I said. Reclaimed clouds. There's no short. Anyways, there was no short after this. And then, you know, 46 is your risk over the clouds. If you trade 50s, you know, then little wider risk, but you trade it long. And that was what was the setup. And our target I gave everybody was 55. It even went more than my target. It went to 58.50. And I talked about the call flow. You know, we just keep track of everything. We just don't look at one thing, right? On the floor, I was continually talking about the flow. There's a 300,055 calls coming in. You know, and I said if it goes over 55, it's going to push more. And all community was trading on DWAC, right? Even Hamad, after 70% gains on late entry, you know. So DWAC was really good. Everybody did really good there. So there was a lot of flow there. Repeatable setup, right? Short under the pivots, long with the cloud system. That's it, right? Even if you long, let's say you were a little late, right? You long that. Let's say you longed it after the clouds, right? We were talking about the clouds earlier, but let's say you longed at 50. Even if you risked, let's say 100 shares and you risked $400, you still made $800 by the end of the day. Or even if you made $600, there was 1 risk to 1.5 reward. So it's all about the repeatable setup. So this was a repeatable midday setup on DWAC for us. Let's go to the next one. Guys, I discussed with you China stocks yesterday. You know, there was a news, and there was also talked about they are going to give some incentives. I told you guys yesterday, and I got some DMs today. A lot of people swung China names. Because of that, This is an ETF on China. If you do not know, KWEB. So that's an ETF you can trade. So what were our main plays? The main plays we were focusing on, which I'll discuss one by one. First, BIDU, PDD, and we'll talk about NIO as well. 1 second, yeah. So, so what did BIDU do? Let's look at our pre-market notes. Okay, so what did I say in the pre-market? So in the pre-market, I said gap over 106. If it gets over 106, there's a gap and it push more. What is the resistance pivot? 104.50. So I clearly gave the pivots and the levels to everybody, and BIDU first pushed over the 104.50 pivot I gave. Then it pushed over the 160 gap I gave, and it pushed to 107.83. Right? So that was a morning trade. If you focus on BIDU, you just focus on BIDU. You don't trade anything else. You see the volume coming in on a big push over the pivot, you take it. You risk low of the day opening price and you get into it. You risk $1, that's fine, but you made, $4 or $3. So that's the trick. And even after 10 a.m. it was flagging. There was still a trade after 10 a.m. but it was not that big of a trade. You added a pullback here, it was not that big of a trade, but it still hit 108, right? So, but when it was breaking down, I logged it. I had a little late entry too, but it kind of worked out. You see, I talked about the long scalps on BIDU. You can see here, and a lot of my guidance is on voice. You can't see that, but that was our BIDU trade, guys. I want to talk about BABA. This was a great example today, and let's go back to our pre-market plan. Our pre-market plan was simple. 73.50 was a support, resistance was 70.69, the pivot breakouts over which we could trade long. So let's see one second. Yeah, so I had it opposite. So 73.50 was a resistance, and 70 and 69 were our support pivots. So anyways, so when BABA starts to break out, and I tell everyone we can long it, but then we just have to risk this area, this 70 to 30, this EMA cloud area on the first push. And on the second push, I'll go to a smaller time frame. When it pulled back here, you see this candle, it's pulling back right here. And that's where I say you can add with your risk, under that cloud, So you can risk that under that cloud, and that dip bounce went on from, even let's say you risk 70 to 50s or something, it went to 74.50. So that was kind of a flag. I talked about this flag breakout. I told everybody to be patient. Even that flag breakout from 73.90 pushed to 74.40. It's a low ATR stock, so that's a big move for that. And then BABA, after that, I took off when it was breaking, and I missed the end of the day run. And I think BABA is good for swing too. Now a lot of bullish news coming out. It's gapping up a little bit. We'll see what happens. But BABA was kind of, not a break-even trade for me. But although, because I had a higher entry, but if you got an entry here where I was talking, then you got really nice trade into 74.50, and that was almost a $1.50 push, and the options moved 30-40%, and then you had a risk of what, like a dollar risk. So dollar risk to make $1.50. That's okay trade. It was not a completely a plus trade because there was a kind of a risk here on the flag. But anyways, so BABA was a great guidance. Overall, a green trade. Nothing special for me, but I didn't size in there, and I don't even like the small ATR, but it's a good stock for small accounts. So another idea that was we had in the pre-market which did not work. I didn't trade it, but there was an idea, so it was a kind of loser idea, because the support was 143.50, and and resistance was 146.50. It never broke the resistance, so never gave me a trigger to long the breakout. But when it pulled to 143.50, it was under the cloud, so that was a problem. So that was a gap fill trade. That was not a long trade. So but if you were trying to long, that kind of didn't work out, because it was bouncing off that 143.50 pivot, and then it failed again, right? So the pivot was not a clean one, I would say. It should have been a little higher, and right here 143.80s, so you could stop out. but it was very choppy. So this idea didn't really work out. Losing idea there. Let's talk about NIO now. I didn't do much on NIO. I just called out the short when it was breaking out here at 512. I told everybody, yeah, you can short it, because whenever a 512 clouds break and it goes to 3450, you can see I said NIO fade from 520 back to 3450. Honith made a nice 30% trade on NIO. So, you know, for small accounts, really nice trade. So you can see that how that trade works from 650s to the 625s, even better short when it breaks the cloud. 512 breaks, you wait, cover here, hit the short again, then cover in the gap. So beautiful, starting from a B setup, became an B plus setup, and then became an A plus setup in the gap. So that was NIO today, so nice gap up and fade. I'm going to quickly talk about another trade. This was not my trade, I didn't take it, but this was LOGI Tech. So LOGI was, I think it was on our watch list. Let's go back, look at it. So yeah, LOGI, so we have 85.50 support and 91 was our resistance. 85.50 support, it kind of chopped around that support. I didn't touch it for a short, it was just chopped. But then in the midday it started to push higher, and that's where I said versus 84 is a good B minus long scalp. And from that point it pushed to, from that point at 10:30 it pushed from 85.60 all the way to 87. So that was not a bad scalp, So this is kind of an example of the reversal that I teach, midday reversal. Hold a level, VIX, push out of that range, create kind of a cup and handle, maybe a handle, and then push over. So that was a reversal, midday reversal setup. That's what idea I gave everybody for the LOGI, and kind of worked out for a nice scalp into 34.50. So coin was a frustrating today. We're trying to short it, and then it was, even though didn't lose much, I was very small size, because I could tell how they were holding this level, right? So that is the key, right? So when you are trying to short something, it's not making lower highs under that level. Keep swiping back up, For a bit it was rejecting 123, coming back to 121, was looking like we might break that 121, but eventually it squeezed back. So I was telling everybody to short the pops versus 123, to short the pops and add under 121. So I shorted the pops. I added, third time I added for the 121 break. It didn't happen, it squeezed back up. So I closed for a quick loss there. After pushing up again it tried to come back, but it created that handle that I keep talking about, lower highs, and then squeezed back up. So there was no short in there today, didn't show up. Probably we should have left it alone when it was doing, I mean, we did leave it alone, after this squeeze, but this chop was pretty bad. That's why it did not work. So coin short in the morning, losing idea. I don't know if somebody longed it on this cloud reclaim into the gap. Always remember these setups. Let's talk about UAL. So UAL, let's go and see what we talked about in the morning. What was our plan in the morning? Let's look at it. Okay, here you go. So UAL was, earnings were decent and we were bullish, and the pivot was 49.50. If pivot fails, we'll gap fill. If pivot holds, you long. What did UAL did? Breaks the pivot, pushes, let me just show you 3-minute candle so you know, pushes for an opening long trade, right? So you add this candle here, opening scalp, amateur move scalp, trying to flag, and when it's making this candle, then you need to get out because it's going to pull back. And then it pulls back after the amateur move, pulls back, breaks the lower pivot, and then breaks the lower pivot of 40.60, and then fades to another 39.77, right? So it pivot up, pivot down. If you were scalping it, you were okay. But if you held, because see, there's no flag here, like I discussed it in the 10 AM flag setups, it's amateur move. So you need to understand a lot of times you will get is amateur moves not working, right? I'm not trying to long here because the candle, I don't see a bullish candle anywhere. I don't see a bullish candle. It's all bearish candle. So I just can't blindly long it unless I see a bullish candle. Yes, I could have longed when this green candle came and I could have longed here, but these were all bearish candles. There is no long there. Once I get out of there, and maybe I could have B minus short under this pivot, risking this and add another short and scalp it short. But apart from that, there was not much. So just an amateur move was the recap over the pivots and then the fade. So just understand how these things move and how you can trade both sides. So IWM at the open, I told everybody it's a little heavy, right? It's a little heavy. I told everybody heavy means it's gravity is pulling it, it's gonna pull down. So the support was 196.82, which it broke pretty quickly. It broke that 196.82. So this was the support, even though there was another level here that that when it breaks that, you see gap up. So this is the gap up. So the gap, that's the gap up. Let's see the gap up. Okay, so you see the gap up and your fib targets, and I said it's heavy yields was going. So that was my guidance that it's short, and I gave everybody 195 target. I said if they keep pushing the yields, we can see 195 there, and we did exactly hit 195. 194.98 is what we hit, close to my 195 target. You can see my timestamp guidance here. A lot of my guidance is on voice, so you won't get it, but IWM was a good short. I was short on it. I did really good on IWM, so that was good. IWM short. I'm just gonna talk about save. If you watched my yesterday video, you remember I told you guys that I'm swinging it, and there was no more ads this morning. It's just the swing hit to 934s and took some profits, and when it break 512, I was out. And so save was overnight nice winner on save swing, right? So Dave was on with it. A lot of traders were in it with the swing, so that was nice. Stress-free trade. So just wanted to recap the saves overnight winner. So if you watch my YouTube video, you find a lot of ideas, so those who are not in the community. So this one I'm going to discuss is RVSN. Let me just quickly discuss it. So RVSN was a low flow trade. I personally traded it at from $5 to $8. But again, I have my repeatable setups in low flow trades. It's always there are 5, 6, 7 setups, which I will do. I will do a webinar and I'll explain that. But great guidance from William today. You can see what was the setup: pre-market highs, pullbacks to the clouds, all the clouds, and then it pushes again over the pre-market breakout, and then flags and breaks out of the 5 cycle. So wherever you add, your risk always needs to be wide. And once 5 was gone, look what I said: if 5 holds, we can squeeze more, right? So then it was gone, right? Psychological levels, I always teach you. So this was a small float setup, great one for the smaller accounts, and even I tweeted about this setup, and this really hit 923 from where I talked about it, right? 5 psychological pre-market highs. So if you go to our low float room, it was all about RVSN today. We were all over it. Even if you added 5 trades, you risked like $500. You made like 1,500 or 2,000. If you're a big account, these kind of trades where you make 20 grand, risking 3-4 grand, so it was beautiful all day guidance by William, Rajesh, and very proud of my low flow team, and we really nailed it. Let's talk about a little bit about Netflix now, guys. So Netflix was after hour that came in. My plan was, I told everybody that 500 is your key level that you guys need to watch, and over 500 we can long. As soon as the results came, it pushed over the price 500. I scalped it, go to 58599 entry, scalped into 530s, and then I haven't tweeted about it, step by step. I told everybody to look for the dips, right? So I said long versus 500 and look for pullbacks. So let's see if I can find in my comments there. Okay, so let's see. So I said look for the pullbacks into the versus the 500. I think RK traded it nicely from 510s to 522s. Let's see, and I left some runners on Netflix for more. My target is my target was 540, but you know, still holding a little bit at 535s. Yeah, see, RK was scalped from 510 to 528, and I told everybody that you know we can get a push there over 500. Decent trade, psychological level. It was also helping our Roku swing, by the way. All right, let's look at what SPY and QQQ did today, guys. There was not many trades. I just sold some put intraday put credit spreads and call credit spreads end of the day on SPX. Otherwise, there was not much. But I did, when I was on live stream, I did show everybody that when it was turning bullish or bearish, we just stay on the top of it, right? Even though it was 54% ATR, but you can see when I talk about these pivots, right? So I talk about these pivots, 484. Let's leave the opening day, right? So just even if you forget about what it was doing in the opening, it's creating an inside day. What did it do in the end? Okay, it gets over 512 and it creates a cup and handle here. I often talk about it. Then it goes on this breakout pivot of 484. You can even draw a trend line like this if you want to. And then it breaks out of the pre-market highs for the next leg, and you know, and that was the bullish end of the day reversal. And you same thing, do you see QQQ? I was on live stream showing everybody the pattern of the reversal. So you can always trade these reversals on 512s, use low of the candle as your risk, and then pushes, and then once consolidation happens over 3450, that's where your risk is. You can easily scalp SPX, SPY or QQQ calls. Not here, this was kind of a choppy, but this was a trend reversal. So this was a decent play on this reversal, and at the same time you can trade and you can see all my guidance is continuously my price alerts and everything. I told everybody 512 SPY is curling, right? So I told everybody 512 is curling, keep eyes on semis. What did semis do? Because I could see when I go to my you know, I go to my every day, then I track all the sectors, I could see that semiconductors in last 5 or 10 minutes are coming up. And what did Nvidia do in that time? So we can see, so Nvidia bounced, SMCI, look at SMCI, where did SMCI go? Right over the pivots I gave the pivots of 450, and look at it, it's now at 474. So that's when the QQQ SPY were getting strong and the reversal was happening, all by the system, guys. And I try to stay on top of it, right? If you're a SPY QQQ trader, we make money every day, and you could easily clear levels, clear system, unless you are just putting tiny stops. We are just trading it successfully, right? So that was SPY QQQ, guys, today. I hate the gap ups, and it's going to gap up again tomorrow. I mean, it's been gapping up for how many days? Let's discuss in tomorrow's discussion. So for tomorrow's discussion, guys, again, I hate these gap ups. You know, we have Netflix earnings, so that will be the main play. But we have been gapping up straight. If I go back to SPY, you know, look where we gapping up. So, you know, we've been gapping up almost since last Thursday. Gap up, right? Friday, gap up. Monday, gap up. Even today there was a small gap up, and it just went sideways, choppy, because there was such a nice setup on SPY inside day, guys. Look at this, it was such a nice inside day setup on daily chart, such a nice inside day. If I look at it, you know, check this out, it's such a nice inside day, and I expected it for that push. So if you look at this, right, so was such a nice inside day. It would have been nicer tomorrow, but it's gapping up, so it's spoiling that inside breakout day to the upside. And so it increases our risk profile when we gap up. There's, you know, the stock SPY QQQ chop, or you know, and If it gaps fill, there's some bearish news, that's perfect, but it spoils so many setups on a lot of our tickers and a lot of our names. So that's what we're going to watch tomorrow, guys. If SPY gaps up, too much gap, you know, I think we get some profit taking, and if it's flat or gap down, I prefer that. So far, just watch this IWM again tomorrow, right? So if the yields, you know, let's go to the market analysis and see if the yields tomorrow, like 10-year yields little are weaker, then IWM can bounce. Look for the bonds to also be weak. Yeah, yields were strong, that's why IWM is taking a hit. So we'll keep eyes on that. Tesla, I think earning coming up tomorrow might bounce a little, I don't know, but we'll keep an eye. Netflix will be our main trade tomorrow. VIX really fell off the cliff today, really fell off the cliff. So in case we have a gap fill tomorrow and VIX bounces from the support, that is something we need to watch. You know, US dollar, we need to watch, still strong. 2 days in the row, US dollar is strong, right? 30-year yields are strong, 10-year yields are strong. So we need to keep eyes on these things, you know, because we've been gapping up every day, and it's eventually one day we're going to gap fill, gap, extend, and then pull back, right? So you don't want to get stuck in those morning trades where you're gap ups and you trade high and you get stuck, right? So so that was it, guys. We'll hit it again tomorrow. Thank you for watching. If you want to trade with me, come join my community and we'll trade together. Bye bye.